So in lesson 9.2, they're talking about the area of circles. We're going to learn how to find the area inside a circle. An area in any geometric shape, it just measures the space inside a shape. It's just two-dimensional space, though. We're not talking about 3 dimensions yet. In order to understand 3 dimensions, you have to understand 2 dimensions first. So, two-dimensional space inside a circle. To find that area, you would use the formula over here that I wrote down. Area equals pi, which is 3.14 is the estimate, times the radius squared. Okay, so just this kind of almost not the opposite, but circumference was our last lesson, was the measurement around the circle, and to find circumference you need to know what the diameter was. To find area you need to know what the radius is. So the radius again is just talking about from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle is the only measurement we really need. Alright, so in this lesson you will need to do I think there are 2 problems here in the yellow section, which I'm going to go over a couple of those problems anyway in the red section, but you want to work in the red section. And in the red section, we'll do the first one, then we'll do a couple other ones that I think that it might help you for me to go over a couple of things with you. But if you look at the circle right here, it tells you that there's a line going through the middle. This is the diameter, goes all the way across, so this is 16. The radius is just going to be half of that. So if the radius we're going to use is 8, I'll write down a couple of things here on the right side. So we're going to work over here, and let's okay, so we know that the diameter is 16. We know that the radius is 8. Because the diameter is 16, the radius is going to be half of that. We're going to use this formula. Okay, so we're going to say A equals, get a different color here. So we're going to say A equals pi, the value for pi that we're going to use. They told us we want to use 3.14. Get that in here. So we're going to say 3.14 times the radius squared. So the radius is 8. And we're going to need to square it. Remember, squaring a number is not multiplying it times 2. You're multiplying it by itself. So we have to do 8 times 8. It's a common mistake most people make is they multiply by 2. But you're not multiplying by 2. You're multiplying by the same number. So we're going to take 3.14. So we use a better color than that. We're going to say 3.14 times 8 is 64. And what's happening here is this was 8 inches. Now we're taking 8 inches and we're going to square it. So really this is going to be inches squared now because I've squared the measurement also. So 64 inches squared. So now we're going to do 3.14 times 64, which if you had a calculator, you will get 296. So A equals 296 square inches squared, and they're telling us to round the nearest tenth, so they're going to round here. This 6 behind it is big enough to round this 9 up, and that would actually make this a 10, but that means we're going to have to round up again, so this would be 201.0 is what we're going to be working with here. Inches squared, or square inches. You could write it either way, but they actually have it done for, oh, it's not inches anyway, it's meters. Jeez, oh man. So this would be meters. The measurements are, I was more focused on the numbers there, so this would be 201.0 meters squared. And we're going to try another one. So we're going to take a look at number 4. Alright, so number 4, they're telling us, find the area of a circle when C equals 8 pi. Give your answer in terms of pi. So because they told us what the circumference was, I said circumference, they're telling you C equals 8 pi. Let me write that down. So C equals 8 pi. Remember the formula, C equals pi times D. Pi is here, pi is here. That means that 8 has to be the diameter. So up here we know that D equals 8. Diameter, that's the big part of the circle going all the way across is 8. That means half of that would be the radius. So the radius has to be 4. And then you can use your formula again to find the area of the circle. So you'd say A equals 3.14 times your radius squared, which is 4 squared. 4 squared is 16. You have to multiply that times 3.14, and again you'd have to use a calculator and get your answer, but I'm going to leave that to you so I can go over a couple more of these problems. So let's take a look at number 5. I'm not going to give you the answer on. So 5 is very similar. They're telling you the exact same thing. So this time they're telling us, well, c equals pi over 4. And again, pi is part of the formula, so that means this 4 in the denominator here is going to help us figure out what the diameter is. So let's take a look at, whoops, I'm going to erase this other thing. So if the radius is c equals pi over 4. Oh, it's a bad pi symbol. So pi over 4. So really there's an invisible 1 here, because there's nothing there, but technically this is like a fraction, so you need a number out in front of this pi, so it would be 1/4. So that means that c equals 1/4 pi. So if this is pi, then this has to be the diameter. So up here we're going to write down the diameter is 1/4. Remember, to find a radius you have to take half of this. So if we take half, that's really taking 1/4 and multiplying it times a half. So half of 1/4 would be 1/8. That means the radius would be 1/8. So now you have to use your formula. So I have this stuff done here. If you want to pause the video so you can see that stuff, you can. But now that I know my radius, I can figure out what my area is. So actually I'm going to do this one for you. So A equals, it's going to be 3.14 times 1/8 squared. And it's really no different than squaring anything else. Just kind of treat these separately. 1 times 1 is 1. 8 times 8 is 64. So that's how you would square that one. And then in the calculator, if you want to type this in, you can. It's really the same thing as taking 3.14 times 1, which is just 3.14, and then dividing it by 64. And actually, let me do that one. 3.14 divided by 64. 3.14 divided by 64. There we go. So we got A equals 0.049065. That's a giant looking number, but it's really not giant, it's very tiny. And it says, what does it want to round it to? Oh, it says gives your answers in terms of pi. Well, that's easy. We could have just done that to begin with. Or you could say pi over 64 would be the same thing. So really, kind of clear some of this up here. We don't really need any of this. They told us they just want this in terms of pi, which is really easy. So we just want pi there. That means you multiply these two things. You could just leave this as pi over 64 square units. So you probably have to type this in as a fraction. Pi would go on top with a fraction. 64 would go on the bottom. Voila, there you go. And hopefully I can get these other problems in here. I'm kind of running out of time. This one's a pretty easy one. It says formula for area of a circle. You don't have to type this one in using the symbols. So you have to click on pi, add the r, and you're going to square r. So you want to click on this little box up here. It tells you there's going to be an exponent at the top. You type up a 2. And that's it. Let's go with that one. Let's go to number 9. It says the sides of a square field are 12 meters. Sprinkler in the center of the field sprays a circular area with a diameter corresponds to the side of the field. How much of the field is not reached by the sprinkler? Okay, so I kind of had this little square down here for you so you could take a look at this. And what's going to happen is, what we're going to do is we're going to take a circle, like this is, pretend all this blue here is like the water. The sprinkler is shooting out in a circular region because it's kind of going around in a circle. And as you can tell, you're not going to be able to, actually, I could probably move this. If I took the circle, there we go. If I took this circle and put it in here, and you know that the distance in this, on the side of the square field is 12 meters. That means that this is 12 meters. This is 12 meters. Well, this is kind of helpful to us because you know now that this distance from here all the way across is 12 meters. That means that you know that the radius has to be half of that. So the radius of this problem is going to be 6. So now you can use your formula. So what you're going to have to do is you have to find the area of the circle and find the area of the square. Well, to find the area of a square, you have to take 12 times 12, because the area of any kind of rectangular shape like that is taking the length times width or base times height. And because they're the same, it's really just taking it and squaring it. But you could just say 12 times 12. So the big area is 144 meters squared. But you want to find the area of the circle. Okay, so the area of the square is 144. That's the big one. Alright, so the area of a circle is, we're going to take this times, I think they want, 3.14. So we take 3.14 times 6 squared. 6 squared, of course, is 36. Times 3.14, which is 113.04 meters squared. So you can see it's not covering, the sprinkler is only covering 113 meters squared, square meters. So these don't look like squares, but I tried to make little blue squares here. It means 113 of these little blue squares, that's what it's covering. But it's not covering these little regions over here. If you include those other regions, it's a total of 144 square meters. So what we want to do is we want to subtract these two things to figure out how much area it's not covering. And if you subtract those two things, you will get 30.96 or 30 and 96 hundredths square meters. And that's going to tell you how much is not being covered. I'm only going to have a couple more problems to do for you because I'm kind of running out of time. So we're going to actually skip ahead to number 12. It says you have two circles with the same radius, and then you want to kind of complete this whole thing here. So it says the combined area of two circles with the same radius is, well, this is normally the formula right here, is pi r squared, but if you have two of those circles and you're trying to find two areas, this only tells you the area of one of these circles. So if you double this, it's going to tell you the area of two circles. The area of a circle with twice the radius is a little different. If you double the radius and then square it, I can kind of show you over here real quick. If I had pi, I double my radius and then square it, what's going to end up happening is we're going to have pi, we're going to have a 4, and we're going to have an r squared. So really this is going to be a 4 on the outside. This is 4 pi r squared. So it's a little different. It's going to be a 4. It says the combined area of the two circles is not the same, because you only have to multiply 2. As the area of the circle with twice the radius. So this one was just twice as big. This is going to be 4 times as big because of that little squared symbol. And we're going to skip to number 13. Well, actually 13 is the next one anyway. And we're going to try this one. Okay, so in this problem what they're saying is they're telling you there's a diameter of one target that's 5 inches and there's a diameter of 25 inches on the whole target. And they're asking you what percent of the target does it take up of the whole target. So we have to find two different areas and then we have to divide them at the end. So the first one, it's a diameter of 5 inches. That means there's going to be the first circle, the smaller circle is going to have a radius of 2.5 inches. And the bigger circle is going to have a radius of, well, it says the diameter is 25. I need half of 25, which would be 12.5 inches. And I'm actually going to do some math. I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to do some maths and skip ahead a little bit. Alright, so if you want to pause the video for a moment and just check out my work, you can. But I found that the smaller area is 19.625 inches squared or square inches, and the bigger area on the target is 490.625 inches squared. What you're going to need to do is divide these two numbers. So you're going to have to take this 19.625, divide that by 490.625. If you use a calculator, you'll get this as an answer. And if you remember anything about percentages, you always move this decimal back 2 spaces. This is in the hundredths place, so this is actually going to be 4%. So that smaller target's only taking up 4% of the bigger target. So this is going to type 4. Alright, so if you have any other questions about any of these other problems, please feel free to email me. But other than that, good luck with your assignment, and I'll talk to you next time.